Hey, welcome back. So as promised, today we're going to talk about plugins. And what are plugins? What do I use them for on my WordPress site? Where do I find them? Why even have plugins? Well, here I'm actually at the plugin directory for the WordPress.org site, and this is a really, really handy resource to have. Essentially, plugins can extend WordPress to do anything that you want it to do, pretty much anything you can do. And in this directory, you can find and download and rate and comment on all sorts of plugins that the WordPress community has created. And these plugins are developed by volunteers. Most of them are free. Everything that you see in here is free. There are some paid plugins as well too, but there's a huge, huge, huge selection of plugins. Look at this, over 26,000 plugins and counting. Okay, this is just amazing. Why do we even have plugins? Well, the core functionality in WordPress, here's my WordPress demo installation here. The core functionality of WordPress, the core of WordPress is designed to be really lean. Okay, and what do I mean by lean? It's not all bloated, okay? You don't, and the purpose of that is to make sure that is to minimize code bloat, but so that you don't have this big, ugly program taking up space and resources on your server. It's meant to be lean and fast and efficient, okay? However, the developers of WordPress very wisely wanted to allow maximum flexibility. Here's the bottom line. There's certain because plugins just add functionality, okay? There's certain functionality you do want on your site, and there's certain functionality you might not want on your site, and that's going to be different for every single person. Essentially, when you're building your website, you want your website to do a certain set of things, and it's going to be different than what somebody else wants. And so rather than create one program that has a billion different functions in it, WordPress basically gives you this core set of tools, and then what you do is when you say, hey, I'd really like to be able to do this, you go and you plug in a little bit of extra code to make your WordPress site work. Just the way you want it to. So it allows you to customize it, okay? Plugins give you those custom functions and features so that every user, everybody who has a WordPress site can tailor their site to their specific needs. And that's what makes it so cool to work with. And the neat thing is that there's so many different types of plugins. There's no way I can go through every single plugin with you. I will go through some samples. I've got like 10, I've got like in a few screencasts, I'll talk about like 10 handy plugins to know about. But man, there are so many different plugins, and I'm discovering new ones all the time. So it's really fun to explore that. But the first thing you should really understand is how do you go about finding these plugins, okay? And like I already said, going to the plugin directory, and this link is just wordpress.org/plugins. This is the first place you go to take a look at the plugins, to read about these plugins, find out, what's available and what's appropriate and what people are actually, commenting on. And you notice that, hey, last time we went to the WordPress site, yeah, we were looking at themes, okay? We were looking at the themes directory over here. This works in a very similar way, except that it's the plugin directory, okay? So the plugins that are available via this plugins directory, this section, they're designed by volunteers. They're usually free to the public, okay? And that's really cool. We can take a look through some of the most popular plugins here. There's usually a description available, all sorts of things. If I go ahead and say, if I click on this, we can read a little bit more about what the plugin does, when it was last updated, what the ratings are, how many people have downloaded it. This really should look very familiar, right? Because a few screencasts ago, we were looking at themes and we were comparing themes, and I talked about, what are some of the guidelines that you should keep in mind when you're trying to choose a good theme. Well, really, everything I said in those screencasts applies in this case. You want to read through this. You want to read if there's, documentation and screenshots. It's a good idea to read through that. It's a good idea to make sure that it's compatible with your version of WordPress. You want to see something that's been recently updated. You certainly don't want to install some plugin that's been abandoned or that's like, a year or 2 or 3 years old. That is likely to cause you problems, because keep in mind, this is extra code that you're adding to your website. Now the beauty of it is that you don't actually have to add any code. There's a way that you can just tell WordPress to go get this plugin and install it themselves, and it's a very user-friendly way to do it. Let me show you how you go about doing that. Right here, there's a section called plugins. We haven't even touched this this yet. But here, plugins right here, we'll see that there's currently, these are 2 plugins that are currently installed on our site, but they haven't been activated. Once again, what does this sound? This sounds really familiar, right? Because when we were dealing with themes, we knew that we could install different themes, but we had to activate them to make them actually work. Okay, now the difference here though is that you can have more than one plugin at a time, but you still do need to activate it before it works. So there's a few plugins right here. Akismet is a good plugin. I'm not going to activate it right now. Hello Dolly is just a silly little plugin. I'm going to show you how to activate a plugin just by using Hello Dolly as a little example. And Hello Dolly comes installed with every new version of WordPress, and I suspect that it's there just sort of as a practice plugin to get used to knowing how to activate plugins. So, because it doesn't really do a heck of a lot, but it was designed by Matt Mullenweg, who is the dude who invented WordPress in the first place. So we got to give him some credit for that. So all right, I selected the Hello Dolly plugin. I'd like to activate it. I'm just going to click on the words activate. And you'll notice, how does this look different now? The background is slightly lighter, and also the word, it's been switched to deactivated, or deactivate here, which basically means that to toggle it off, you just have to click on this again. We now see up here, we have, clicking on all shows us all the plugins that are currently available on our site, that are currently installed. If I click on the active tab up here, we see that only the plugins that are activated list here. And then if I click on inactive, I see that only the plugins that are inactive are listed right here. Okay, so I usually stay on this view because it's fairly intuitive to figure out which one is active and which one isn't. Notice that if you want to delete a plugin, you actually do need to deactivate it first. So I'm going to go ahead and deactivate this. And then once we deactivate that, I'm going to click on this and then just click on delete. And it is almost gone. WordPress very nicely asks us, are you sure you want to delete this? And yes, let's go ahead and delete that. We love Dolly, but that's okay. We can keep going. Okay, so the plugin has been deleted and it's gone. It's gone. How do you add new plugins? Well, in order to do that, we're going to click on the Add New button over here. And let's say we had changed our mind and we said, oh my goodness, I just made a huge mistake. I should never have deleted the Hello Dolly plugin. That's okay because we can, whoops, Holly Dolly, Hello Dolly, we can go find it again, okay? Because these plugins are all available. There's like a repository of plugins that WordPress keeps, and we can see that we can actually reinstall it. Okay, I can take a look at the details first by just clicking on the details section, and we see there's a little description. There's not much to it because it's really just a sample plugin. Okay, we can go ahead and click on the red Install Now button. And this brings us to a new page where it says, okay, we've unpacked, we've downloaded it. And where is it downloading it from? It's actually downloading it, you see here, from the WordPress website. So it's going, and the WordPress website. It's going to this site, it's grabbing that archive file, it's unpacking the package, installing it. It's doing all of that on the server for you so that you don't have to do it manually. And that's really, really handy. Okay, so it says installing the plugin. You get the message saying successfully installed the plugin. Let's go ahead and activate it. I'll click activate, and there we go, it's active again, yay! And of course, what does this plugin do? It just adds a line up here, a line from the musical Hello Dolly, or not the musical, the song Hello Dolly, a random lyric from the song Hello Dolly. Let's go ahead and reload this and see what happens. Golly gee, fellas. Wow. So, and this will just change on every page. I love Dolly, but let's deactivate this. So now you know how to activate plugins, you know how to install plugins, you know how to deactivate plugins, you know how to delete plugins. In the next set of screencasts, we're going to start walking through some basic plugins that I really like using, and they're not, by no means are they the best plugins in the world. It's just plugins that tend to be my go-to plugins, and it's really because every plugin works so differently. Hopefully it'll give you a better understanding of how we go about not only installing plugins, but how we go about configuring plugins, and also kind of helping us wrap our heads around what is it that we can expect plugins to do. Because when you first get started with WordPress, one of the hardest things is to think, well, what plugin do I need? And often if you don't know what's available out there, it's really hard to imagine that. So hopefully this will get you started and sort of whet your appetite and trigger your imagination so you can start thinking about what it is that you would like to your website to be able to do. But that's in a future screencast. So for now, have fun, experiment with that Hello Dolly plugin. It's just a good practice to activate and deactivate plugins. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.